All right, so last day of the semester. Today is just a review day. I mentioned a couple classes ago this growth and decay thing is not going to be on the exam, so 11.5 is out. So we'll spend almost the entire period just reviewing for the final exam today. The exam is coming up on Monday, May the 20th. Anytime between 8 and 1 o'clock, you have up to 2.5 hours. Questions on the exam time? And to be clear, that means you're finishing by 1 o'clock, not starting by 1 o'clock. Okay? All right, one other thing up here on the calendar, Project 9 is due at the start of the final exam. That was the reflection project. I do have other copies here, so let me know if anybody needs one. And I'll flash this up here again. A reminder that the official studio hours for the semester change at the end of today. This is the new schedule starting tomorrow. It's here in green right outside our classroom. I also emailed this to everybody yesterday. Questions on the studio schedule? Okay, so here at the bottom of page 63, just a quick look at the areas of emphasis for the final. Big section on antiderivatives, first and second fundamental theorem of calculus, and included inside of that big antiderivatives thing is the U substitution. That's the most important integration technique we have. We also had integration by parts, partial fraction, everybody's favorite trig substitution, and then integrating, flashbacks, right? And then integrating if you have a big table of values, all the approximation techniques that we had with the rectangles and trapezoids, midpoints, and all that stuff. And also, you got to know not just the technique, but also how to recognize when to use each technique. On the next page, we talked about improper integrals. There were two kinds. Improper integrals are one where there's an infinity or a minus infinity on the integral, or where there's an infinite discontinuity in between those limits on the integral. So we'd like to know how, whether they converge or diverge, and we need to make sure we can use correct notation. Okay, solving differential equations. This was our very recent stuff. We did talk a while back about displacement, velocity, and acceleration. There was like a test question or a quiz question where we were on the moon maybe, and the acceleration due to gravity was like negative 1.6 meters per second squared, and we tossed the ball up, and then you had to derive the formula for the height of this ball as it goes up and then comes back down. We did that by finding two antiderivatives. Separation of variables is this most recent technique. Solving differential equations is really hard, but checking whether or not a function I give you is a solution, pretty straightforward. The applications piece, I guess we can just cross off. That was the growth and decay thing that we were going to do today. Slope fields we talked about last time. That was the little tangent lines. And then Euler's method we also talked about last time. We had a big section during the semester about applications of the integral. They all involved slicing. We did some geometry, area and volume. We talked about some physics stuff with work. We did some economics when we did present and future value problems. More physics with the density and center of mass. And then finally, we had a couple of things that we could do with probability density functions. And then our last big topic of the semester was series. So understanding sequences and series, make sure you know the difference. All the convergence tests that we talked about. And that led us to power series and in particular Taylor series. And we had a whole project calculating radius and interval of convergence. Finding and using series was one of our topics as well. Any questions on the topics? There's a much more detailed list if you go back to each of the study guides throughout the semester, study guides for each test. Okay, resources you can use. 4 different handouts that I have given you. There's one on integration, one on partial fractions and trig substitution, one on convergence tests with the big table on it, and then one on Taylor series. You can bring all 4 of those with you. You can also use your calculator, and you can bring 3 reference sheets with you as well. So hopefully you've been holding on to those reference sheets for the different tests. You can bring those. Make sure that you do add some stuff for the last 2 days of the semester where we talked about the differential equations and the slope fields. So 7 pieces of paper total. Any questions on what you're allowed to bring? Okay, it says see the syllabus for the date of the final exam. So I think that I made some changes to that date. So again, it's here on this calendar, which I have handed out updated. So it's Monday, anytime between 8 and 1. So we can write that in here. Two and a half hours is what you get. Yes, Josiah. Not very much longer. The normal test is supposed to be like an hour. Maybe this is an hour 20 or something like that. It's not written to be a 2-hour test. Other questions? Okay, so I don't have a robust study guide for the final exam. Go back and look at the 3 study guides for our first 3 tests, but there are 2 activities that follow here. One of them is about tricky integrals and the other one is about applications of the integral. So you can work on those right now. You can work on studying, making your review sheet, do whatever you want. Raise a flag if I can help, but essentially just work for the next, hour and change and let me know what I can do. Any questions before we break off into our groups here? Okay.